Okay, welcome back. And I just had the worst steak of my life. It's awful, but I think at least it didn't leave me too drowsy to make one more video for today. So, Beto O'Rourke and the Democrats and their wild weekend and this black pilling, they have the political scene kind of at a weird juncture because you have a lot of people are still talking about the tech censorship and the issues there, which I fully support. People, even a lot of these people, I don't necessarily like their views at all. But the tech censorship, definitely, Trump does have to, I think, take a little bit of a more aggressive stance on it. And some of the things he's been saying are, I'm not sure exactly why he would take this approach. For example, apparently today he said he would defund NPR and PBS, which I'm all for, but I don't think that really addresses that issue. You don't really address tech censorship by defunding the government, the government managed communications publication networks, the radio and TV networks, PBS and NPR. It's not the same thing. So it could be that he sees the best way to address a threat is to make a threat, which I don't really see the logic in it. I think he does have to directly say to some of these companies that, yes, if you do engage in some of these shady activities, if you ban people from your platform, some of these people invest money into their channels on YouTube and some people invest on their Facebook pages or whatever. But I think he could do something much simpler and simply tell people to leave those platforms. Tell people to start using alt tech. Say to people, well, there's alternatives that are ready. And the fact that he doesn't really shows to me that either he doesn't get the real problem or he doesn't care. The fact is that people are realizing that Twitter is kind of a sinking ship, and if Trump doesn't realize it by this point, I'm not sure when he will. All he has to do is basically say one day, I have other ways that I can communicate with people. I think I'm just going to quit Twitter, and then he could probably open his own YouTube channel. He could open a Gab account. He could open an account on Telegram, I think, Snapchat, things like that. The DJ Khaled does amazingly on Snapchat. Sorry. So then you have all this other stuff that was going on with Beto and Joe Biden and that Chelsea Clinton incident. So it kind of has me wondering exactly why these black pill people, the ones that are saying everything is lost, we can't depend on anything changing to avert this crazy disaster that we're talking about. You're losing sight of the fact that the left itself is basically decomposing as we speak. The fact that they have Joe Biden even being considered as a viable candidate is an indication of the weakness of the left. Now, some people would say, well, you're underestimating him. For example, I heard Dan Bongino put out a podcast, I think it was last week, saying, well, he's more formidable than people think he is. He easily outsmarted Paul Ryan during the vice presidential debate in 2012. Joe Biden, I believe, once he gets on the stage, it was very easy for him to deal with Paul Ryan. Once he has to get on the stage with a bunch of other Democrats and have to take the sniping of all the other ones, he's going to be basically the same thing. You have to take into account that these are people who are staking their careers on really, standing out at this point. Okay, Amy Klobuchar, for example, what else is she? What other goals does she have to aspire to? If she can't win the nomination this year, I think she has to get the vice presidency, or she'll just be another senator for a long time, which is fine for a lot of people, but Obviously, there's something. I guess there's something missing in her life if she's running for president. So you have Klobuchar. You have people like this John Hickenlooper, who's going to. I believe some of these people are going to end up openly clashing with Bernie Sanders, especially the ones who, when he starts talking about the universal health care, that's going to be a very interesting talk, because some of these governors are going to say, well, we did studies and we decided that this wouldn't be practical for our state because we simply can't afford it. And the Bernie crowd are going to latch onto those people and attack them. It's going to be very, very ugly, in my opinion. So Joe Biden is going to be a part of that. They're not going to be able to stay positive. The idea that this is going to be a positive campaign where there's not this sniping and bitterness between candidates, I'm not sure exactly why they think it's going to be that way, or why they're even promising it's going to be that way. Because the fact is that you're going to have to. There's already all this stuff that's leaking out about Beto O'Rourke. There's the waxing, wax my ass, the poetry that he made, talking about running kids over, which some people were saying, oh, this is offensive, this is horrible, or whatever. Look, from what I heard people reciting the poem. It sounds like pretty goofy, stupid, teenage angst stuff, and that's fine, but it's pretty funny looking back at it, looking at his youth. He seems like one of those characters out of Dazed and Confused. He's from Texas, so that movie also took place, I think, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So yeah, the Beto O'Rourke Joe Biden dynamic going into the Democratic debates, which are not that far off from today, they're going to present a real problem for the Democrats, because how are they supposed to keep things positive? Some of these candidates have to seize the moment that they have, because nobody is going to be talking about them after a few weeks. People are going to get bored. You think people are really going to want to hear from Jay Inslee, the governor of Washington? What's going on in Washington that's interesting and positive? Okay, A interesting, B positive. Okay, you have the city itself. Seattle is basically a cesspool of homelessness and drug abuse and what happened. I think it was it Boeing or was it Amazon that the city wanted to impose like this crazy tax on them. So yeah, some of these candidates are going to be really at a loss to show that they can really set themselves apart from the pack. That happened in 2016. You had that moment when Marco Rubio started making jokes about Donald Trump's small hands, and you had the moment when Chris Christie, but prior to that, he went and did a kamikaze move against Marco Rubio and said, well, he just repeats himself, he's like a robot or whatever. These candidates have to snipe at each other in order to make it work. So these black pillars that are depending on Andrew Yang in order to get across the finish line, and they're saying, well, we need somebody who's really going to shake things up, social credit system. He's gonna do this. He's gonna fight tech censorship, which he won't. They're saying $1,000 a month is better than nothing, which it shows that they never really believed in any of the conservative economic theories that they used to propose. Okay, now I don't have a problem with people evolving, but this is an evolution that's clearly out of self-interest and desperation, rather than actual well thought out contemplation. It's really funny watching these Yang Gang people, which I get their frustration, but they're gonna. I think what they're doing, this move of supporting Andrew Yang is not going to reflect well on them in the future, because once Andrew Yang he gets into the primary debates, you see a lot of these other candidates are going to attack him. They're going to say, "Well, you have an alt-right following. You're basically introducing harmful elements back into the party or whatever." Then you're going to see in certain states he's just going, like, for example, the first few states, Iowa and New Hampshire, I don't necessarily see him winning. Okay, maybe Iowa, I think he could do decently well. So Andrew Yang, does he play a factor? I think as the debates start, yes, absolutely. After that, once you get to some of these much more cosmopolitan states, like Illinois, like Massachusetts, like, for example, New York and California, which I think California, for starters, has already moved their primary up. Once you get to those states, it's going to be pretty destructive for it's going to be pretty difficult for him to make any inroads, because the fact is that name recognition is harder to get over there. Their media capitals, L.A. and New York, it's very difficult to get real exposure there unless you're hooked up with the Hollywood crowd, which that could well happen. And I do predict that Andrew Yang will kind of tip the race in a certain way, but he's not going to be able to win. So ultimately, the way things look now, Bernie Sanders has a great advantage in some of these races. He's probably going to, based on the Emerson polling, I think he was far and away in the lead in Wisconsin. But if you look across the country, it's not really going to help him. First of all, everything is proportional in the Democratic debates, in the Democratic primaries. So he until he starts winning over 50% in some of these states, the victories don't really matter. And the longer a lot of these candidates stay in the race, the harder it will be for him to capture the nomination. And let's say you have all these candidates that represent a certain state and can do well in those states. It's also another difficulty for him. Now he could probably destroy some of these candidates regardless of whether the race is on his home turf or their home turf. For example, New Hampshire, for sure he's going to lock up. But Colorado, for example, let's say if you start seeing states that have favorite son candidates, favorite son meaning candidates from that state that have a lot of name exposure in that state, like John Hickenlooper. If John Hickenlooper can win Colorado and Amy Klobuchar could somehow work out a victory in Minnesota, and then you have, I don't know if Booker's going to win New Jersey, but let's for argument's sake, let's say he wins New Jersey. Okay, if you see a lot of these states start to break for what do you call it, favorite son candidates, and there is no clear winner in the primary, then you're going to have to get some sort of pact at the convention, and that could end up with the knife being stuck in the back of Bernie Sanders. Yeah, absolutely. You could end up with a second place or other runner-up winning the nomination, thanks to superdelegates and thanks also to favorite son candidates that start saying, well, I'm going to represent the best interests of my delegates and my state voters, and screw you, Bernie Sanders. So yeah, it's going to be very difficult for all these people. I think that it's basically Trump's race to lose at this point, and the black pillars can, they can talk about demographics, they can talk about all these other things that are going on, but once you see trust erode in the Democratic Party, which has already been it's a process that's been ongoing for several years now. Once that starts to really creep in, and people already don't have any belief in Nancy Pelosi. She's considered a joke. People take sides in her and the Ilhan Omar thing, and you had the Chelsea Clinton incident, which, by the way, is hilarious. People are saying, well, which Democratic Party do I support? Do I support the one that believes in eliminating air travel? Do I believe in the one that is, pressuring schools to teach all this like crazy gender stuff at an early age? Do I believe in the Democratic Party that is, in favor of late term and sometimes postpartum abortion? A lot of people don't buy into either one or all of those positions. And it's really starting to be a very clear choice where people are going to say, well, maybe just not going to vote. Maybe I'm going to vote for somebody else, third party, crossover to Trump, whatever is going to happen. Yeah, I don't think demographics are necessarily the big determinant in the race yet. But, it's still a developing situation, obviously, and we'll see where it goes next year. Take it easy. Have a good night. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to my other channel, Razor Ray Live Wounds, Razor Ray Special Cuts. And by the way, there's a new video on that channel, which I'll try to put up a link tomorrow. And other than that, have a great night. Subscribe to me also on BitChute, Minds, and Gab.